Hi there, I'm Renos Vakis, lead economist at the World Bank, and your host for Accelerating Development Ideas for Impact. This is not your typical podcast. It's an AI powered conversation brought to you by the World Bank Institute for Economic Development, where we unpack the latest research with one goal in mind, turning big ideas into real world impact. Let's get started.
Thank you for the introduction, Reynolds. Imagine you're a young worker trying to plan your future in a region where the economy is changing fast. Jobs are evolving, prices are rising, and the old drivers of growth are slowing down. That's the backdrop for the report we're discussing today. Europe and Central Asia, Economic Update, Fall 2025, Jobs and Prosperity.
Exactly. We are looking at a moment where the old ways of generating wealth, just relying on more workers or easy consumption, are hitting a wall. The headline numbers suggest a slowdown. But if you look closer, there is a fascinating story of resilience underneath.
And that resilience raises a deeper question. What will actually sustain growth going forward?
The answer is productivity. And it brings us to the core challenge of this report. We are facing a demographic cliff.
A cliff? That sounds ominous.
It is a matter of simple math. The working age population in Europe and Central Asia is projected to decline by 17 million people between 2025 and 2050.
17 million? That's the population of a medium-sized country just vanishing from the workforce.
Indeed. And historically, one of the main reasons for which economies grew in the past is that each year they added more workers. That option is disappearing. So the only way to maintain prosperity is to make the remaining workers more productive. But here is the problem. Productivity growth has stalled since the global financial crisis of 2008.
So we have fewer workers, and the ones we have aren't becoming more productive fast enough?
Correct. The report highlights a metric called the responsiveness of jobs to productivity. It is stable but very low. On average, a 1% increase in productivity leads to only a 0.15% increase in employment over 5 years.
Wait, so even when businesses get more productive, they aren't hiring that many more people?
Not at the rate we need. And this leads to problems in the quality of jobs. The service sector now accounts for 54% of all jobs, which is up from 42% in 1995. But many of these are low-skill occupations. We have seen employment grow 12% over the last 15 years. But it was driven by people entering the labor force, not by the creation of high-productivity roles.
That connects the dots for me. People are working, but they aren't necessarily in jobs that drive big economic gains. So why aren't the companies growing into these high-productivity powerhouses? What's stopping them?
This is my favorite part of the analysis, because it challenges a common assumption. We often think big, established companies create the jobs. But the data shows that startups and young, small and medium enterprises, SMEs, are the real engines.
The young ones?
Yes, young SMEs account for only 14% of total employment. Yet, they generate nearly 40% of gross jobs created. Conversely, mature SMEs tend to be net job destroyers. They shed workers as they age.
So the new kids on the block are doing the heavy lifting. But I'm guessing it's hard to stay a young, dynamic firm forever.
It is especially hard when the playing field is tilted. The report points to state-owned enterprises, SOEs, as a major drag on the economy. In sectors with a strong SOE presence, employment growth is negative relative to productivity gains.
Because they have a government safety net?
They crowd out private resources. A 10 percentage point increase in government ownership is associated with subsidies of roughly 0.5 to 0.7% in production costs through financial and real channels. Imagine trying to compete in a race where your opponent gets a head start every single time. It distorts the market.
That makes it tough for a private startup to survive. And then there's the people side of this equation. Skills. I saw something in the outline about an overqualification paradox. That sounds like a fancy way of saying people are too smart for their jobs.
It is a frustrating reality. About 39 to 53% of the workforce holds a degree higher than what is required for their job. Yet, firms consistently report skill shortages.
So we have people with master's degrees serving coffee while tech firms can't find engineers?
Essentially, it suggests that formal degrees are not translating into relevant skills. PISA math scores actually declined in most countries in the region between 2012 and 2022. So we have high enrollment, but the quality isn't matching the market needs.
Okay, that's a heavy list of problems. Demographics dropping, productivity stalled, skills mismatched. But the report doesn't just leave us there. It outlines a way forward. What are the solutions?
The report proposes 3 pillars of reform. Pillar 1 is about creating the infrastructure foundations for jobs. This means investing in physical things like energy and transport, but also upgrading human infrastructure, modernizing education and skills.
So that's where the skills gap comes in? And I assume technology too?
Exactly. We have to address the AI gap. The countries in this region lag the United States significantly in AI preparedness. The index score is 0.511 compared to 0.771 in the US. We need infrastructure investment. For example, server density in Central Asia is just a fraction of what you see in advanced economies. You cannot build a modern economy without the digital backbone.
That's a clear target for investment. So Pillar 1 is building the foundation, people and tech. What comes next?
Pillar 2 is strengthening governance and the business environment. This is where we enable the private sector to operate. We have to remove policy-induced inefficiencies like bad taxes and, crucially, reform those state-owned enterprises so resources can flow to productive private firms.
Leveling the playing field. Got it. And Pillar 3?
Pillar 3 is mobilizing private capital. As we noted, public budgets are tight. Governments cannot pay for all this alone. Policymakers must use equity investments, guarantees, and political risk insurance to attract private capital. They need to make it safe for private money to enter the market.
It's interesting. It feels like the region is pivoting from growth by adding more to growth by doing better.
That is the perfect way to summarize it. We are moving away from an era of easy labor expansion. The future is about precision, better skills, sharper digital tools, and more efficient markets. It is a challenging transition, certainly, but the roadmap is clear. If the region can unlock the potential of its private sector and modernize its workforce, there is a good chance the productivity gap could be narrowed. Over to you, Rinos.
Thank you for joining us. You can find the full report on our website. Just follow the link in the description. Be sure to subscribe to be the first to know about upcoming episodes. And before you go, how do you plan to put what you learn into practice? And what topics you'd like us to explore next? We'd love to know. Until then, goodbye.